The 6 Goswamis are the principal distributors of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and he was the leader. And so we are all eternally called Rupanugas, followers of Rupa Goswami. And so this is a translation to a song called Shri Rupa Manjari, thank you, Pada, and it's from the Parthana, the feet of Shri Rupa Manjari. I'll just read the English translation. And this translation is a little bit different from another book, but the essence is the same. The feet of Shri Rupa Manjari, Rupa Goswami's eternal form, as a gopi of Braja, are my real wealth. They are the object of my bhajana and puja. They are the treasure of my heart, and they are my ornaments and the life of my life. They are the reservoirs of all rasa for me, the fulfillment of all my desires. They are the conclusion of the religion of the Vedas for me, and are the goal of my vows, austerities, and the chanting of my mantra. They are the purpose of all my religious activities. By the power of those feet, my activities will become favorable to devotion. Spiritual perfection will be achieved. And with these 2 eyes, I will be able to actually see the exquisite beauty of Shri Rupa Manjari's divine feet will shine like the brilliant moon upon the lotus of my heart, both day and night, thus giving relief to my afflicted soul. By the venom of the snake of separation from you, my soul has wasted away, and my life is ever afflicted, and my life is ever afflicted and distressed. O Rupa Manjari, please be merciful and give me the shade of your lotus feet. Narottam Das has taken refuge. So I guess it goes through Narottam Das. Okay. And so today's verse from the Bhagavatam is 12, right? Yeah. Okay. So we sing some songs. I'll just start with Om Namo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayamudiraye.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer our respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and to Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya, and our spiritual master. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Name. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pasyajati Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I'll say, then you say. Vadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha Vadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha Bharatam Chotaram Kurun Bharatam Chotaram Kurun Kim Purushadini Varshani Vijitya Jagrihe Balim Vijitya Jagrihe Balim
Vijita Jagrihe Balim
Bhadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha
Bhadrashvam Ketumalam Cha
Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Bharatam Chotaram Kurum
Kim Purushadini Varshani
Kim Purushadini Vashani
Vijitya Jagrihe Balim
Vijita Jagrihe Balim
Bhadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha
Bhadrashvam Ketumalam Cha
Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Bharatam Chotaram Kurum
Kim Purushadini Varshani
Kim Purushadini Vashani
Vijitya Jagrihe Balim.
Vijita Jagrihe Balim
Anyone else?
Bhadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha
Bhadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha
Bhatram Keva Shotaran Karun
Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Kim Purushadini Vashani
Kim Purushadini Varshani
Vijita Jagar Balim
Vijita Jagrihe Balim Bhadraswam Ketumalam Cha
Bhadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha
Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Kim Purushadini Varshani
Kim Purushadini Varshani
Vijita Jagrihe Balim
Vijitya Jagrihe Balim. Ladies?
Bhadrashvam Ketumalam Cha
Bhadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha
Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Kim Purushadini Varshani
Kim Purushadini Vashani
Vijitya Jagrihe Balim
Vijita Jagrihe Balim
Bhadraswam Ketumalam Cha
Bhadraswam Ketumalam Cha
Bharatam Chotaram Kurum
Bharatam Chotaram Kurum
Purushadini Varsani
Purushadini Varshani
Vijitya Jagrihe Balim
Vijitya Jagrihe Balim
Bhadrashvam Ketu Malam Cha Bharatam Chotaram Kurun
Purushadini Varshani Vijitya Jagrihe Balim.
So, word for word is Bhatratvam
Bhadraswam
Bhadrashva
Bhadrashva
Ketu Malam
Ketumalam
Ketu Malam
Ketumalam
Cha
Cha
also
also
Bharatam
Bharatam
Bharat
Bharat
Cha
Cha
and
and
Uttaran
Uttaran
the northern countries
the northern countries
Kurun
Karun
the kingdom of the Kuru dynasty
the
the kingdom of the Kuru dynasty
Kim Purusha Adini
Kim Purushadini
the country beyond the northern side of the Himalayas
the country beyond the northern side of the Himalayas
Varshani
Vashani
parts of the earth planet
part of the earth planet
Vijitya
Vijitya
conquering
conquering
Jagrihe
Jagrihe
exacted
exactly
Balim
Balim
strength.
strength
So the translation is, I'll say it and you repeat. Maharaj Parikit
Maharaj Parikshit
then conquered all parts of the earthly planet.
then conquered all parts of the earthly planet.
Balashva
Bhadrashva
Ketumala,
Ketumala,
Bharata,
Bharata,
the northern Kuru,
the northern Kuru,
Kimpurusha,
Kimpurusha,
etc.
etc.
And exacted tributes from their respective rulers.
And exacted tributes from their respective rulers.
Mara's brigade then conquered all parts of the earthly planet, Bhadrasva, Ketumala, Bharata, the northern Kuru, Kimpurusha, etc., and exacted tributes from their respective rulers. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Bhadrashva is a tract, so this is, under the, it's like italicized, and it's Bhadrashva, it's one of the places. This is a tract of land near Meru Parvata, and it extends from Gandhamadana Parvata to the saltwater ocean. There is a description of the Varsha in the Varsha in the Mahabharata Bhishma Parva 7:14 through 18. The description was narrated by Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. Maharaj Yudhishthira also conquered this Varsha, and thus the province was included within the jurisdiction of his empire. Maharaj Parikshit was formally declared to be the emperor of all the lands ruled by his grandfather. But still, he had to establish his supremacy while he was out of his capital to exact tribute from each state, from such states. The next one is Ketumala. This earth planet is divided into 7 dvipas by 7 oceans, and the central dvipa, called Jambudvipa, is divided into 9 varshas, or parts, by 8 huge mountains. Bharatvarsa is one of the above-mentioned 9 varsas, and Ketumala is also described as one of the above-mentioned 9 varsas. And Ketumala is also described as one of the above varshas. It is said that in Ketumala Varsha, women are the most beautiful. This Varsha was conquered by Arjuna also. A description of this part of the world is available in the Mahabharata Sabha 28:6. It is said that this part of the world is situated on the western side of the Meru Parvata, and inhabitants of this province used to live up to 10,000 years. And that's from the Bhishma Parva 6:31. Human beings living in this part of the globe are of golden color, and the women resemble the angels of heaven. The inhabitants are free from all kinds of diseases and grief. Then the next is Bharatvarsa. This part of the world is also known as the 9 Varsas of the Jambudvipa. A description of Bharatvarsa is given in the Mahabharata, Bhishma Parva, chapter 9 to 10. In the center of Jambudvipa is Ilavrita Varsa, and south of Ilavrita Varsa is Hari Varsa. The description of these Varsas is given in the Mahabharata, then in the Sabda Parva 28:7-8 as follows, gives the Sanskrit. I'll just skip over that. It is mentioned here that the women in both these Varsas are beautiful, and some of them are equal to the Apsaras, or heavenly women. And then there's Uttara Kuru. According to the Vedic geography, the northernmost portion of Jambudvipa is called Uttara Kuru Varsa. It is surrounded by the saltwater ocean from 3 sides and divided by Sringavan mountain from the Hiranmaya Varsa. Kimpurusha Varsa is the next one. It is stated to be situated north of the great Himalayan mountain, which is 80,000 miles in length and 80,000 miles in length and height, and which covers 16,000 miles in width. These parts of the world were also conquered by Arjuna, Sutta 28:1-10. The Kimpurushas are descendants of a daughter of Daksha. When Maharaj Yudhishthira performed the horse sacrifice yajna, The inhabitants of these countries were also present to take part in the festival, and they paid tributes to the emperor. This part of the world is called Kimpurusha Varsha, or sometimes the Himalayan province, Himavati. It is said that Sukadeva Goswami was born in these Himalayan provinces, and that he came to Bharatvarsha after crossing the Himalayan countries. In other words, Maharaj Pariksit conquered all the world. He conquered all the continents, adjoining all the seas and oceans in all directions, namely the eastern, western, northern, and southern parts of the world. So I'll read the verse again. Is that Maharaj Pariksit then conquered all parts of the earthly planet, Bhadrashva, Ketumala, Bharata, the northern Kuru, Kimpurusha, etc., and exacted tributes from their respective rulers. So, again,
Ranjana Shalakaya
So, when you're talking about Maharaj Pariksit going out, conquering, it's not the same kind of conquering that, say, someone like Napoleon or Hitler, that type of conquering where you're going out and trying to take control and increase the size of your empire. This is in order, the emperor in those days was responsible to make sure that all of the different kingdoms under his charge on the earth planet were all following the God-conscious principles. Yada hi dharma shaglani bhavata bharata abhutanam adharmasha tadatmanam sujamyaham parittanaya sadanam janishtina saduskitam vinishina saduskitam dharma samstapanarthi yuga sambhavami yuge yuge. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice or descendant of Bharat and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. This is Krishna speaking to Arjuna. And to deliver the pious and to unite Muslims, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear. So we've already had Krishna. He's already been on the planet. He's already established Yudhisthira, and now Yudhisthira has left the earth planet and has put his grandson or grandnephew in charge, Pariksit, because he's fully qualified as a Mahabhagavat, and he takes his advice from the Brahminical, the qualified Brahmins, who take no salary for their advice. And so the purpose of going out on this journey around the different parts of the Jambudvip, which is not exactly what we consider the earth, and it's a little bit more extended than that. But I can maybe touch on that a little bit. But the real point of this whole point is that he is going out and he's asking for some type of tribute or tax. It could be like they give one gold coin. They accept, yes, you are the emperor, we are following. And he makes sure that all of the proper rituals and religious principles are intact, that none of the regulative shastric principles are being violated, that all the citizens are being cared for, and not just the citizens that are in the human form of life, but the citizens that are in the various animal species of life. And if the king in that part of the planet decides he doesn't want to pay the tribute, then he has to do battle with the emperor and his army. But in this case, there was no problem. Everybody, went along. But even in the time of Krishna, when he was on the planet, there was this one rascal, Pundraka, who... it's actually kind of fun what he did. I mean, there was a play that devotees did in Denver that the devotee that did it was telling me about it. Prabhupada just roared laughing. He says, this Pundraka, and you see there's a painting of him in the Krishna book, he dresses up with these false arms, like 4 arms, and has his own, he made like a Sudarshan chakra and a club and a lotus flower, and he's painted himself blue, and he's going around claiming to be Krishna, to be Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he orders Krishna to surrender his Sudarshan chakra because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Krishna said, okay, here. Cuts off his arms, cuts off his head. It's really quite ridiculous. Then also, even like say the story of Ramachandra, how, I mean, he wasn't after Ravana's kingdom or his gold. I mean, he did steal his wife, that was another issue. But it was also about removing him as the king of that part of the world and putting his brother, Vibhishan, who was a surrendered devotee to Lord Ramachandra, in charge. So when these kings, when these emperors would go out and to these different parts of the world, it was to make sure that the whole planet was following, the advice of the Brahmins and following, because when we follow the Shastric advice, then there's no such thing as scarcity or shortage. I mean, the governments today are basically set up to protect the interests of the ruling elites, and that could be a corporate elite in a capitalist country or in a totalitarian country. It's the oligarch, the different individuals who have somehow or other secured power, or a corrupt king, a corrupt dictator. So this is, and that, unfortunately, that's the norm in Kali Yuga. The people are not being protected. Who is being protected in the U.S.? It's mainly the corporations, the big multinational corporations, the vested interests that put these people into power. So, and it doesn't matter so much whether they write man-made laws that are completely opposed to the laws of God. Say, let's say, thou shalt not kill. This is a basic moral principle. It's there in the even the Muslims. They think that the pig, that is something that is very, filthy, and you can't eat the pig. And there's actually one interesting story where this one Muslim was being attacked by a white boar, and the term for something low or wretched is haram, H-A-R-A-M, haram. And when the boar attacked him, a wild boar attacked him, he yelled out, haram! And at that moment, he left. With the camera the way it is, it looks like there's a little white thing there, and it looks like you're going like this. I thought I said something funny, but there's that little thing there. It looked like he had this big smile. So anyway, he's going, haram! And he's meaning wretched, boar, But actually, he got the benefit of saying Hari Ram. And he was able to get a type of liberation there. So, but thou shalt not kill. I mean, there was sacrifice in the Old Testament, but not slaughterhouses. So we have changed the laws, and therefore we've created so many other problems for ourselves. The climate, is not operating properly. There's shortages of our natural resources. There's quarreling over small issues, in family units, in communities, country to country, big state to big state. There's so much quarreling, always on the verge of little wars constantly going on, which is actually encouraged by these people, and because they make money off of the wars. So the whole society is corrupted. Whereas in the days of yore, we receive our knowledge through the deductive process of knowledge. This is descending process of knowledge, which means instead of being inductive, where I try to ascend to the truth, if I make a statement that man is mortal, that I've seen, my father's died, my grandfather's died, my great-grandfather's died, all men have died, so and we've heard from authorities that man is mortal. But so we accept that as a fact, because it's coming from the authorized authorities. Whereas in the ascending or inductive process of knowledge, I don't know if man is mortal. There may be some man somewhere that's not dying. So I have to go and check every single man on the planet. I don't know, I have to. But it's easier to just accept. If the knowledge is coming from a pure source, from virtuous sages. So these literatures, these scriptures, have been passed down over the ages through bona fide spiritual acharyas to protect human civilization and to give us the real knowledge of religious principles, and which is the purpose of the human form of life. And in those days, they had emperors and kings who were taking those advice of those Brahmins and taking advantage of the Shastras. So there was no scarcity, there was no unnecessary wars, there was no cancer, there was no, there's one story where a Brahmin, his son dies before him, and he's outraged, and he goes to the king, this is not to be. Why is my son dying before me? This is the king's fault, you're doing something wrong. This is a very common thing in our society. And the shock value is really you have to be really shocking and really ghastly to catch our attention. Because most of these things that are described in the Bhagavatam as very, very inauspicious is quite the norm for us. We accept it as, it's just another day. And as it describes here, there's a description basically of the Earth planet that we're in Varsa. There's other parts of this Earth planet. I don't want to really get into it because I don't know a lot about it, but it's described in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And again, we're accepting things from a descending process of knowledge. But it's described that there are other dimensions and other places that, like right now, we think we're so proud of our technology. But they had a technology in those days, they could release a mantra, a smart bomb, a brahmastra, by sound vibration. They could release a weapon by mantra. And all of these, they're starting to slowly, gradually understand that many of these architectural feats that they're finding all over the planet, they had to have been done through sound vibration, through mantras. There was no other way that these things could have been hand-carved with the so-called technology that we assign to them based on our inductive reasoning. But from getting knowledge from the deductive process, from the descending process, we know that there was a superior culture on this planet. And the planet was ruled by very advanced souls who had the knowledge of all the subtle sciences that we don't have anymore. And so there are parts of the planet that we can't necessarily access. We can access Varsa, and that basically is Australia, North, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, like that. But there are places, like Prabhupada said, that the Himalayas, actually in some places, they go down underneath, like from Pakistan. They go underground. That's why it says here they're so wide. They go underground. Then they come back up. Like when he was in Switzerland, he said that the Swiss Alps are part of the Himalayas. And that Prabhupada had vision where he could see because of his spiritual qualifications, and anyone who actually had the opportunity to gaze into Prabhupada's eyes will tell you that Prabhupada's vision was very special, that you felt this person was seeing everything about you, and still he accepted you. And he said that in the Swiss Alps there's a mountain there that's hundreds of miles high. It's either Meru or Mandara mountain, that it's a place where the demigods go. So around us, like what this Kim Purusha is, you see in the fifth canto, it describes the different planets and where they are. Kim Purusha is just like right above, north of where what we call Earth, and it's part of us, and it's part of what Pariksit was ruling. And he had the ability to go where we can't go. Like when you're on a plane, they show you the flight charts where this airline flies. You can see that they cannot fly over certain mountains because the air currents are so strong. And I heard recently that there was some testing of some supersonic jets that were able to go a little bit further than normal, and they could see mountains in the distance that they couldn't see the top of. And there are many stories of explorers that have ventured too far and have all of a sudden gone past the frozen tundras and found tropical lands. But in any case, but they had technology and they had the qualification to be able to go to these places. And some of these places are heavenly planets where it says that they were living for 10,000 years. And when the people, the residents of the heavenly planets look down, they look down on us, on Bharat, but they are jealous of us. Because here in Bharat, we have the ability to, because of Varnashram, we have the ability to work and improve our piety and gradually progress towards the point where we're qualified to associate with Mahabhagavats or advanced devotees. They're living these incredibly long lives. They're incredibly beautiful celestial gardens. The enjoyment level there is beyond our imagination, and they're living for tens of thousands of millions of years. And they can't get what we have right now. They wish they could be us. When you read sometimes the descriptions of these heavenly planets, you think, wow, that sounds pretty good to me. But I have to admit, when I was a new devotee, and I started hearing some of these things on the heavenly planets, I was thinking, wow, that's pretty good. But there, you only live out your piety. It's difficult to practice devotional service in these heavenly planets because you're enjoying so much. There are people that we know that were, relatively very successful celebrities, like say somebody like George Harrison, and he struggled. He wanted to surrender to Prabhupada, and he did in a lot of ways. He risked his whole career by doing what he did. But he would say to Prabhupada that, sometimes because of my association, I just can't help it. I feel just like a demon. He said, Prabhupada just laughing at him. Not laughing at him, but just sort of chuckled and said, no, you're a demigod. But it's difficult when you're in a position of such great opulence and your association is everything is so attractive and so laid back, and you can live and enjoy. But you could practice devotional service, but it's just so difficult. Whereas here on Varsa, especially right now, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come and given us this process, it is, everyone is wishing they were here, and that's what is so significant about a day like today, the disappearance day of Rupa Goswami. Because Rupa Goswami, the Goswamis are the leaders of the distributors of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and Rupa Goswami is the leader of the 6 Goswamis. Therefore, we are all eternally called Rupanugas. And Rupa Goswami and his brother Sanatana Goswami, they were the Muslims were ruling. They were living in eastern India, like Bengal area, and they were living, I think, in Ramakeli, if I'm not mistaken. And so they knew they were reading Shastra, and as a matter of fact, where they lived, they actually had created sort of a new Vrindavan. You know, they created a Vrindavan atmosphere where they lived. But the ruler, the king of that area, he went out and looked for the most intelligent people in the area. And Rupa and Sanatan and their brother, they were the most intelligent, educated people. But they were Vaishnavas. They knew something like 6 languages. He made a deal with them. He needed them to rule his government. He made one of them the prime minister and the other one a minister of the treasury, I think. He said, I won't persecute the Vaishnavas. They can chant and practice their worship, but you have to come and work for me. Which was, that was a great offense for a Brahmin to come take service and serve a Muslim, a mediator. But they did that. They sacrificed so that the other Vaishnavas could. But they were always thinking about Lord Chaitanya. They knew about Lord Chaitanya. And they would write letters to Lord Chaitanya. When, can we have your association? Then finally, they found out that Lord Chaitanya was coming. First they thought to Jagannath Puri, and then it ended up that he came to Ramakeli, where they were. And they went, Sanatana and Rupan went, and they put a straw between their teeth. They wrapped a cloth around their necks, which is a symbol like of a street sweeper. And they took off all their opulent dress, and they threw themselves at Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet and grabbed hold of him and begged him to let them serve him and take service, their service, and allow them to associate with him. And such humility they showed. This is these 2 men were the most powerful people in that part of Bengal. One of them was the prime minister, Sanatana Goswami. The other one controlled all the wealth. He was so wealthy, Rupa Goswami, he decided right there when he met Lord Chaitanya, that's it, I'm not staying another day in this service. And his wealth was 2 huge barges filled with gold and so many other things. And he divided it. 50% went directly to charity. If you have money, you always think, well, if I have money, I'll give in charity. But then it's like someone says, okay, so you get some money, and then 50% of your salary or 50% of your wealth, you have to give it in charity. It's like, there's a story about one person where he said, I promise that if I get the wealth, if I get this amount, then I will give 50% in charity. And so then when he gets it, and it's something like 25,000 or something. And so he's like, it's really hard, I don't know. So then he thinks he comes up with a very clever scheme, and he says, I'm going to throw the money up in the air, and whatever you catch, you can keep that. So it didn't work because they caught it all or something like that. I don't know how it went, but that's the mentality. You get the money, and it's like, I don't know, I don't think that's enough. So he gave everything without thinking about it. 50% of his wealth, then 25% for his family, and then 25% for emergencies. And then he went off to Vrindavan. And Lord Chaitanya told him, you go and renovate and find the lost deities and temples and renovate these places and develop places of worship and write books. He'd already written a very beautiful book. I don't remember the name of it. He'd already written it while he was in the service of Nawab Hussain Shah. And so he goes to Vrindavan, and he's there for several months, and it's a very thick, dark, deep jungle, thickets. And after a few months, he's just thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he's just walking around like a loincloth. He's giving up everything. I mean, he had so much wealth. And he's living in this jungle. And he's just feeling completely helpless. Then one day, this boy, a young boy, comes and tells him, there's a cow. There's a herd of cows, but one cow every day, he stands on top of that hill, and then he profusely, the milk just flows out of his udders, and no one is milking him. It's just flowing out, and it flows down to the bottom of the hill. No one can understand why it's happening. So the next day, Rupa Goswami immediately runs to find this cow, and sure enough, there's a cow at the top, and the milk is just profusely just flowing out of his milk bags down to the bottom. So he immediately gets some other Brajvasis, and they start digging where the milk is landing. And they dig and they dig, and they find Govinda, the deity of Govindaji, buried deep down for many hundreds of years, buried down there. And then they gradually build a temple for him. He also, because now the time is running out, but he also did, he wrote under this one tree that's called the Ter Kadamba tree. This Ter Kadamba tree, I think, is that the correct pronunciation? Ter Kadamba means like calling. So this is a tree that in Krishna's Leela, he would climb up it and sit at the top of the tree, and he'd call the names of the cows and create like an echo. Chintamani, different cows like this. So Rupa Goswami would sit under this tree and write his books. And when he was writing about the separation of Radha and Krishna, the tree, the leaves would fall off like they were crying. And then when he would write about the reunion of Radha and Krishna, and they would come back together in that ecstasy, the tree would just blossom with beautiful kadamba flowers, and the leaves would start growing back. The tree was reacting to the transcendental and showing transcendental ecstasy from the writing of Rupa Goswami. Then one other quick short story about Rupa Goswami. There's so many, but time is our enemy. It was Sanatana Goswami's appearance day, or his birthday, and he wanted to, give a present. And he had nothing. He was really, what am I going to do? So then this really beautiful young girl comes and she brings him some milk and some sugar and some other ingredients. And he said, thank you so much. And he realizes, I can make kheer with these ingredients. And he makes this milk preparation called kheer. And Sanatana Goswami receives it and he tastes it. And it was so sweet. And then, the way Prabhupada tells the story, he says, it was that Sanatana's reaction was, this must be Radharani. It had to be Radharani who gave you this. And then they start lamenting that they took service from Radharani instead of giving service to Radharani. Rupa Goswami, it said, his eternal Leela, Rasa, his position in the spiritual world is, he's named Rupa Manjari. He's a servant of the gopis. And it's stated that Krishna noticed this young girl and how nicely she was, and humbly she was serving the gopis. So Krishna picked that Manjari, that servant of the gopis, to be Rupa Goswami, to help him distribute this most magnificent, munificent mercy of the Sankirtan movement, where one can simply, by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, we can achieve what sages have to meditate for 60,000 years to perform great austerities, great sacrifices with a tremendous amount of wealth. They don't even get to the same point. They only get to the point of service of awe and reverence. We can enter into the most intimate pastimes. And we are the most fallen. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, when they fell at the feet of Lord Chaitanya, they said, we are lower than Jagai and Madai. We are more sinful than Jagai and Madai, if you know the story. They were very great drunken debauchers, and they were saved by Lord Nityananda's mercy. Actually, Jagai and Madai were, like in previous lifetime, they were Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksha and Ravana and Kumbhakar. They had different. They were the Jai and Vijay doorkeepers who had to take birth so many times as demons. So they were saying that we are more fallen than they are. And that's the way they really truly felt. And what to speak of them, what about us? And because of Prabhupada's mercy, he came all across this ocean. That's at the same age I am now. I mean, in about 2 months I'll be exactly the same age as him. He's the same age. Steve? Is it Steve?
Oh.
Tom, Dr. Tom, I don't know why. So, yeah, and so imagine getting on a freighter and going across an ocean and experiencing 2 heart attacks with no money, not knowing the language. I mean, I don't even, like you're making a move now, I'm sure it's very difficult. I know for me, I just went to visit my grandchildren, and the hassle of going to the airport, it's just what to take. I mean, when Krishna comes, he takes his whole village with him. You know, he just brings everything. So Prabhupada, all he had was a few suitcases of Bhagavatams and the order of the spiritual master in the holy name. And somehow or other we took it. And then I want to mention something about Gauridas Pandit. So Gauridas Pandit, he's Subal, a gopa, a cowherd boy. And if I'm not mistaken, in the Krishna Leela, I think Subal is one of the cowherd boys, when they're wrestling, defeats Krishna. I think because Krishna wrestles and sometimes he's defeated. He wants to, be like, so it's not fun just sitting there being, oh, you're great and wonderful lordship. He wants to enjoy, with his loving devotees. And so Subal is Gauradas and Pandit. So he was an associate of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and when they were about to leave, he became very upset. They were going off, I can't remember if it was Vrindavan or Jagannath, and then, so Lord Chaitanya personally carved a set of murtis for him out of neem wood. And those deities are still there. There's also, apparently, a Bhagavad Gita that was handwritten by Lord Chaitanya at this temple. And this is probably someplace, Haridwani Prabhu, you probably went on this, on Parikrama.
Yes, we've been there.
And that isn't the story about the ore, the ore, if Lord Chaitanya invested all of his transcendental potencies, if someone embraces that ore, they get liberation.
I remember seeing it, but I don't remember all
The pastime of it. Yeah, it says that because he was a boatman to take him across the river and he didn't want to do it. So Lord Chaitanya embraced the ore. And then that ore, it says if anyone embraces this ore, they can cross over the ocean of material existence. Now one quick story is he had a disciple and his name was Chaitanya Das. And Gauridas Pandit went to go and visit some of his disciples in other parts of Bengal, and told Chaitanya Das to organize a big festival when I come back, and we'll celebrate, I don't know if it's Gaur Purnima or something. And so he went out preaching and passing out things and telling people. And then when when his guru came back, Guridas Pandit, he saw they went into the temple and they opened the curtains and the deities were gone. Can you imagine? Prabhupada comes to the temple and there's no deities. I mean, I told you sometimes, when you're not here, sometimes they actually come off the altar and turn on kirtans in the morning. You just got to catch it at the right moment. And so Chaitanya Das is completely like, he's like, what? But immediately, Gauri Das Pandit, he knew, because he could see off in the distance, down by the river, there was a huge kirtan. And he knew that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are probably over there, the deities. So he went over there, he grabbed a stick, because he's Subal, and he went over there in a mood like he was going to bring them back. And when Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda saw him coming with the stick, they jumped into Gauridas Pandit's disciple's heart, Chaitanya. So therefore, they hid inside of his heart. And then when Gauridas Pandit saw that, to see that his disciple had become so spiritually advanced, he gave him the name Hridaya Chaitanya Das, which means that the Lord Chaitanya resides within his heart. Then they came back to the temple and were worshipped. And Hridaya Chaitanya, he then became the guru of Shamananda, who we all know how advanced he became. So the guru wants to see his disciple do. Of course, the disciple never thinks that he's overcome or surpassed his spiritual master, but he wants to see his disciple making spiritual advancement. So we are very fortunate today, as these days, the disappearance days of the two great souls who helped start this movement 500 years ago, and we are very fortunate that we are on Bharat Varsa at this time, where all the demigods, and where the women are like angels, they look like beautiful angels, and everything is celestial, beautiful gardens, never any problem with weather or food supply, and they're living very long lives with no sickness, no old age, no quarreling, and they're looking down at us thinking, why can't we be them? Why can't we have that struggle of getting up from our Lord? Why can't we get up and chant Hare Krishna? They're the ones that are getting the chance for Krishna Bhakti. We are cursed to be in this heavenly planet. By the time we get there, it'll be too late. So we should count our blessings. Thanks to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.